D, Board of Trustee meetings an open meeting for the public to observe the board conducting district business. Therefore, audience members may address the board during the designated audience items section on the agenda. If you have any printed materials you want to give to the board members, you must provide them to the board secretary, Jane Kaiser, or to me, and we'll give them to the board members. We also ask the members of the audience be respectful of others, remain quiet during the meeting so that everyone is able to hear the proceedings. For your convenience, microphones have been provided on both sides of the boardroom. Please speak directly into the microphone if you are asked to answer a question or address the board during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer Ontiveros. The time is 6 p.m. and we have the presence of a quorum, and this meeting has been duly called and notice of the meeting has been given in the time and manner required by law. We'll begin with the pledges of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
If you can please remain standing for a silent invocation. You may be seated. Next on our agenda is our recognitions. Dr. Dupree.
Thank you, Mrs. James. If the board would join me on the floor in front of the dais, we'll recognize some of our outstanding students and staff.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. Tonight we are proud to recognize two junior ROTC Marine cadets from Ridgepoint High School who led our Pledges of Allegiance. First, we have Major Kristen Aguilabo. She is the battalion commander for the overall program and also plays on the girls' varsity basketball team. And Captain Madison Wilson is a company commander in the program and is also on the Ridgepoint Royals dance team. Help us recognize and congratulate Major Kristen Aguilabo and Captain Madison Wilson. Next, we're proud to recognize Lisa Bohm, a Colony Meadows elementary teacher. She received the 2014 Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science teaching programs. Lisa was honored by the State Board of Education through the adoption of a formal resolution at their general meeting on Friday, February the 13th in Austin. This award is not only a great honor for Lisa, but for the entire school district. Please help us congratulate Lisa, please. Next, we have Ben Wright. Ben is a 7th grade Quail Valley Middle School student who placed at the MathWorks Math Contest. Ben is one of two boys who will travel to Hong Kong to compete in the 2015 Primary Mathematics World Contest. This is the 13th year for MathWorks to compete in the national contest. Please help us recognize and congratulate Ben Wright. Four Quail Valley Middle School students had a perfect score on the American Mathematics Competition Test. 59 Quail Valley Middle School students took the test, and 4 students had a perfect score, and they will take the AMC 10th grade or higher test. Quail Valley Middle School was one of 2 Texas schools to have an average score of 100%. Pretty good. And tonight we have three of the students are here with us. Kevin Jen, would you please come forward? Naveen Mukat. Vincent Liu. And the coaches for the Quail Valley Middle School students are Isel Nall and Gwen Curtis. And next, we're proud to recognize our all-state band, choir, and orchestra winners who performed this weekend at the Texas Music Educators Convention. Students are selected for this honor by participating in a series of rigorous auditions beginning in September and concluding in January. The final selection to All-State puts these musicians in the top 3% of all students who audition from across the state. And first we have from Austin High School, Samantha Graves. These are band students. Alex Yu. And Director Bob Christie. Next, we have Clements High School band student Stone Wang. And his director, Daniel Galloway. We have Elkins High School band student Nathaniel Farrar. And director Chad Collins. Travis High School band students Brendan Arnett, Michael Koenig, Zachary Sturgis, and director Josephat Jaime. For Clements High School choir students, we have Shreya Bajraju, Andrew Burgos, Mason Bynes, Anne Luquette, Sindhu Satish, and Director John Richardson. Next, we have Dulles High School student Abby Benton. And director Jennifer Marrero. Next, we have Elkins High School choir student Courtney Stelzer. From Austin High School orchestra student Brittany Zhao. And director Carolyn Vandiver. Clements High School orchestra students Helen Hay. Ryan Kelly. Cher Liu. David Nee. Sergio Robert Kim. Noel Shin, excuse me. Teresa Tien. Eger Toe. Becky Wang. Dana Zhang. And Director Ginger Wolf. Excuse me. Dulles High School Orchestra students Nathan Snyder. Excuse me. Kathy Sham. Ashley Song. Troy Stevenson. Julianne Wiley. And Director Michael Isidore. From Travis High School, we have orchestra student Joyce Wang. And Director Sabrina Behrens. And if you're here tonight to support these students and our teacher, would you please stand so we can recognize you? Thank you, Dr. Dupree. That concludes our recognitions.
All right, our next item of business are the audience items. We have 3 speakers tonight. Our first speaker is Christina Richardson. Where are our speakers? Are they coming in still? Okay, I'll wait. There we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. We're ready for our audience items now. Each speaker has 3 minutes to speak, and Mrs. Bailey will give you a 30-second warning when your time is drawing near. Our first speaker tonight is Christina Richardson. Is Christina here? All right, well, we'll skip that one then. The next one is Varun Rajari, maybe, Rajaram.
Right here?
Right there, make sure the microphone is on.
Hello.
There you go.
All right.
Please tell me how to say your name correctly.
You got the first part right. The last name is Rajaram.
Oh, accent, I had the accent on the wrong syllable.
It was pretty close.
Okay, thank you.
So, respected board members and audience, my name is Varun Rajaram, and I'm a sophomore at Clemens High School. And today I'd like to address the board about the inclusion of a course at FBIC Summer School, specifically AP US History. Now, the reason I bring this up is because right now course selection is going on, and so I've been looking at creating a 4-year plan for myself, and I've talked to my counselor at Clemens High School, and so he's made lots of suggestions based on my aspirations for college and beyond, and so he's made suggestions that he suggests I take courses, advanced courses, like, for example, Physics C, AP Biology, and AP Chemistry, just to name some. And currently, I'm an athlete. I play soccer, and I plan to play soccer for 4 years. And so the point I want to make to the board is I want to request the board to make it available to take AP US History at FBIC Summer School during the summer. And the main rationale for this is if I have the ability, me and many other students who are motivated enough to do so, if we have the ability to take this course during the summer, it frees up spaces in our course, in our coursework, where we would have the opportunity to fill that with more advanced courses. And additionally, some of the, another point that I'd like to make is that right now, as it stands with the various new policies that have been put into effect with online courses and various other summer school policies, it is impossible to take a course like AP US History because it is an EOC course, and the EOC courses cannot be taken online. And the once approved vendor, Trent International, which was once approved for taking AP US History, is no longer approved. And so as it stands, myself and many other students who would want to potentially take this course are not able to do so. And in previous years, this has not been a problem. And so the reasoning is just that if previous students have been able to take this course in the past, and my counselor specifically has told me that he suggests I take this course over the summer because it will give me the opportunity to take more advanced courses like the ones that I've mentioned, then I think that the district should
30 seconds.
The district should look towards finding instructors to offer this course and make it possible for students who are motivated to put in the time and effort during the summer to gain the benefits that they would gain from taking a course like US History. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here tonight. Our next speaker is Leslie Bauer.
Good evening. Thank you very much. My name is Leslie Bauer, and I want to thank you, first of all, the board, for all the hard work you recently did with all the rezoning process, especially in regards to Lake Olympia. I have a group of Lake Olympia residents who are here tonight. They're back there because we were a little bit shocked to learn that Quail Valley Middle School was recently designated as an open campus for the 2015 and 16 school year. Yet the amendment to move the Lake Olympia residents from Quail Valley Middle School was defeated in the last vote. Lake Olympia Middle School, unfortunately, has had some discipline and academic issues for many years. And with the new plan, we feel that pushing it over the maximum capacity at 108 projected percent is a huge concern for our residents, and we really feel it should be a concern of the school district. An amendment was proposed during the zoning process that would have helped balance the numbers between the two community schools, yet it was not passed, even though it was consistent with your board policy. Proximity to schools, which is less than 2 miles away, it would clean up the feeder pattern from Quail Valley to Elkins, and it balances the attendance at both of the schools. Lastly, this amendment had overwhelming support from our community. 77% of our residents approved it and wanted it. We are asking that you reconsider this amendment, and we would love to have any information on how we can do that properly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Christina Richardson, is she here? All right, then that concludes our audience items. Next is our information item on legislative priorities. And I will get my folder. Do we have any hard copies of the? Okay. All right, so the reason this item, do you want to say anything? So the reason this item is on the agenda is because, as I mentioned last week during our workshop, it's a legislative season here in the state of Texas, and there's starting to be lots of talk about legislative issues. And I kind of thought it was important for the board to at least be aware of the issues that might be coming up in the next few weeks with the legislative session, and months, I guess, all 140 days. And see if there are any items that we all feel really strongly about that we want to put together as on a priority list for our school district, or if we just want to have a dialogue tonight and leave it there, that's fine too. But I kind of wanted to just start the conversation a little bit and see where everybody was on that. So I of course don't have the agenda item up, so it's got a list on it. Thank you, Dr. Dupree. So, yeah, that would be helpful, Mrs. Kaiser, if we could put that up. So, this list of topics, some of them came through, I don't know what page 8 maybe, 10. Oops, it went away. Oh, there you go. Thank you. If you could scroll it up just a little bit more so we could see the list. There you go. So this list came partially from administration, started putting a list together. We had some conversations with State Representative Miller in the fall. And so those things we kind of added onto this list. Other things that have been in the news or might be of interest to our school district. So that's where the list came from, and I'm open to comments or conversation. Are there any things here that you want to speak out about or feel strongly about? Anybody have anything they'd like to say?
Yes.
Mr. Rice.
Well, I think this is a very good list, Mrs. James. And without reading or going over every single thing in here, I would just like to say over the years that I've been on the school board, it's been described to me that the TEKS, or the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, are an inch deep and a mile wide of requirements. And so reining that in and allowing our teachers to do a little more in-depth teaching in the classroom, I think, is a very good thing. Reducing the number of assessments given to students in grade 3 through 8, we're all for accountability, but not excessive accountability. I think, when I was in school a long, long time ago, I took all the tests that my teachers came up with, but I didn't have any state mandated tests I had to take. And I was riding a horse to school at the time. But the last thing that I wanted to comment on was at the very bottom of the list. Other likely legislative topics for discussion. School choice, achievement school districts, and home rule districts. I'll talk a little bit later tonight about our trip to Washington, D.C. and the Advocacy Institute, but one of the things that the federal government makes us do, or that we're mandated to do, and we want to do this, and that is to comply with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. But when that act was passed over 40 years ago, Congress agreed to fund the cost of that at 40%. They have consistently failed to do that. They have only funded it about half of that amount for the entire 40 years. We, however, are still obligated to comply with federal law. So we have to make up the difference for that, and that comes out of our operating funds, funds that could otherwise be used for other programs and initiatives in our schools. We don't have that luxury because we're bound to comply with federal law. So when people talk about school vouchers or tuition tax credits or other private programs that are funded with public tax dollars, I have to say that I'm opposed to that. I have to say I'm opposed to anything that redirects public tax dollars from public schools, because that leaves school districts at risk of not being able to provide for our most at-risk students with reduced funding. So I think that's a good thing to include in here. And two other quick things. Achievement school districts. Achievement School District is an initiative being considered in the Texas legislature this time around, and what it would try to do is to create a statewide school district that would be funded. I'm really not sure how it would be funded, although I've got a pretty good idea we'd be paying for it. And they would take low-performing schools and place them into the state-run Achievement School District. So I think anytime we ask the state government or the federal government to run a program like that, it's a mistake. This school board is elected by the public. We're accountable to the public, and any kind of initiative that removes public accountability and local control, in my view, is not good. So there is another initiative for low-performing schools that is also being put forth by TASB, and that is to issue an RFP to some of our institutions of higher learning and allow them to come in and find a way to improve low-performing schools. Now, we have our challenges in Fort Bend ISD, but I can tell you that our schools are really doing very well. But again, this is one of those things that sometimes that sounds great in a committee meeting until you have to figure out who's going to pay for this. How's it going to get funded? The devil is in the details. So I'm opposed to achievement school districts. Home rule districts, that law is already in place. Home rule districts were enabled 15, 16 years ago, and that was done when charter schools were first enabled. And the concept behind a charter school was to relieve a school of certain prescriptions and requirements that they had to follow in order to come up with innovative ways of teaching and helping children learn. And it was thought at the time that if it was good for one school, it might be good for an entire school district. Unfortunately, there are none in the state right now, and that's because the threshold for getting one off the ground is to have an election in which the majority of the voters approve it, where 25% of the registered voters participate. So that's going to limit that to probably November, when there's a presidential election going on. I'm really not opposed to anything in there, provided that there's local control. Without local control, we're just asking for trouble. You have publicly elected school board members who are accountable to the public. that provides the necessary give and take to the administration, and without it, then there's no input, zero input from the parents. So I think I've spoken long enough. I'll give someone else a chance.
Thank you, Mr. Rice. Mr. Rosenthal?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Rice, for that summary. I appreciate that. I would agree with you on just about all except for the school choice issue. I think we might want to just leave that one to the legislators and maybe not pipe in on that. But the rest of them, as far as decreasing the TEKS and the testing and the ASD and the home rule thing, we agree 100%.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Rosenthal. Do other people have comments? Mrs. Bailey?
I guess I'm not too sure where we're going after this, but let's just telling how we feel. As I go through these one by one, since we haven't discussed this as a board yet, I definitely am for reducing the number of TEKS. I think there's way too many TEKS. There's no way our students can even master some of these things in 2 weeks. I definitely am for that. The graduation, I'm not for that one. I think that the 83rd legislature met us. They did a lot. They reduced the 15 EOCs to 5. And to exempt a student from not passing one of these 5, I would think, where's the incentive to the students? So I guess this 572 seniors that you provided in the background here, with something that we're going to approve tonight, Dr. Hill talked about it, we're able to gather some data and really do a deep dive into what's going on with the 572 seniors. I don't, 70% to pass these EOCs, and I don't agree with this. I just feel the legislature met us, they did a lot last year, and I much prefer the 5 to the 15. Pre-K, the only issue I have with pre-K, if it's for our economically disadvantaged, not just non-speaking English. We have a lot of high-income areas of this district that are getting pre-K. I don't even know if we've done any studies in this district on pre-K and if it benefits or not. And it's mixed at a national level. But I would like to explore this more with Governor Abbott, actually, and find out what his, because I know he does support this, so I just kind of have some more dialogue with him on that. HB 5 implementation, I think we've had 2 years to implement this. Many other school districts are already complying with HB 5, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have these pathways available now. School finance, definitely agree. TRS, definitely agree, don't mess with it. Definitely agree with flexibility on our school calendar. I'm with Mr. Rosenthal on the vouchers, and pretty much what was mentioned here tonight. If you are zoned to a poor performing school, I think they should have options. So I would like to keep vouchers out. I am with Mr. Rice 100% on achievement school districts, home rule. And did I leave anything out, Mr. Rice? Here, I think I got them all. I went through them all, and those are just my opinions. So just a couple of them I don't agree with. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. That's why we're doing this, sharing our opinions. Anybody? Mrs. Tassan.
So I'll start at the bottom where Miss Bailey left off, because I have some strong thoughts on school choice, and this is coming from a pretty conservative girl. I don't think school choice is school choice. Take it from a mom who would have no choice. You can give me all of the money in the world, and I have a daughter that can't go anywhere else. There's not a private school in the state that's, unless it's a segregated environment, that would take her. So it wouldn't matter whether the school is high performing or low performing. You can give me money and she can't go anywhere else. So I think we have to be careful when we talk about what choice, when we throw around the word choice, because I don't think that that's actually always what it offers. And I also think if we have a lower performing school and we start handing money out to the children that go to that school, no matter how much money the state wants to give them, it's not going to be enough for those. It's not going to be enough to pay for private school tuition, and those that are lower income are still not going to be able to go because they can't make up the difference. So it's incentive for those that have higher income to go to private school and to take whatever money they get and put it with the additional money that they already have and send their children to private school. It does nothing to help those kids that are at risk. So I think it would lead to more segregation in our schools. It would leave kids that are at risk or that have disabilities in the public school system, while allowing for those that are higher socioeconomic groups to go and partake in the private school system. So that's my position on that. I have no problem with leaving it out if we can't come to agreement on it, but I feel pretty strongly about that because I think that that's necessarily what's going to happen if we pass that kind of legislation. The governance issue is pretty easy. I think most, if not all of us up here, are for local control and for parents having input and say in their kids' education. And I certainly agree with that. I am with Ms. Bailey on the TRS issue as well. And I agree with that. School finance as well. I think the comments that are made here in our handout are pretty reasonable, and I think that we do need to adequately fund the instructional materials allotment, and we've got to do something about funding. I don't think they're going to do anything about funding. I think they're going to wait for the Supreme Court to rule, but I think something more equitable needs to be done there. House Bill 5, the only comment I would make about House Bill 5, I agree that getting it implemented, I mean, we're obviously working on that. There is one other issue that I've brought to the attention of a couple of our legislators that I'd like to be on our radar screen is that, and I'm not sure exactly where this is, but in the law, but the endorsements that are allowed are not going to be, students who take endorsement classes that are modified are not going to be given credit for those endorsements. And so that directly impacts kids that are in special education and who necessarily have modified curriculum. And so I've asked for our legislators to look at that and to see if we can't address that, and perhaps at least I think it would be sufficient to put on their transcript that they are IDEA eligible or something along those lines. But I think if students take those classes, they should get credit for that endorsement. And that's not something that's on here, and it's just something I wanted to bring our attention to. I think I agree with Ms. Bailey on the pre-kindergarten issue as well. It might be something we want to look at here locally and see, see where we are on that. Graduation, and your point is well taken about the end of courses, and I think you're right that the legislators met us and reduced those end of course exams. My only comment would be that I know that there are a lot of kids that are just not test takers. I have one or two of them, and I would hate to see them not be able to graduate simply because they struggle taking these tests that really are not tied to post-secondary college and career readiness. But in my mind, that ties back to the accountability system and getting our accountability system fixed, which takes me back up to the top where I also agree with the reduction in TEKS. I also agree that we need to develop reasonable assessments, and that includes it includes end of course, the STAR testing at the elementary, middle, and high school level. And I like the idea of considering norm reference tests as opposed to criterion reference tests. I think that's critically important.
Thank you, Mrs. Tossan. Mr. Burdine, do you have some comments you'd like to share?
I do. I'm going to skip around a little bit, but
Uh-oh, that makes it hard for us. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
there's a few words that come to mind when we talk about TEKS, and those are revise, overhaul, or a comprehensive review of the current TEKS. I'm for finding ways to simplify what we currently have, and if that means reducing them, then that's fine. They are Texas essential knowledge and skills, so we need to be very cautious on what we do. But I am for potentially reducing those if that's what we need to do to make the system better. I am for the school finance. I agree with that. I agree with the calendar. Definitely, local control is important. I agree with Mrs. Bailey as well, as long as Mrs. Tossan with the TRS. And I need some more clarity on the pre-K as well. So I need to do more research on my own to really get a stance on that and whether that's right for our district or not. So.
Thank you, Jason. Is there, Dr. Dupuy, do you think there's anybody out of our staff that could speak a little bit to the pre-K situation here? And, well, a couple of people have brought it up as a question.
Dr. Hill, do you want to address that?
The research is mixed on half-day pre-K programs. You can find it both ways. You can reduce student-to-teacher ratio, and the research is mixed on that also. There are some research studies that indicate a full day you do get better results. I think that another area that for our district and for many districts, such as when the state did 22-to-1, that there were no facilities tied to that. And so the availability of pre-K programs and facilities would be something that if we go there, I think we need some flexibility with, because you're talking about where we have two classes in a classroom, one class in a classroom. So that does have some greater facility issues. I think there are our community's changing, and when you look over a 10-year period, we do have a growing number of students who are both second language learners and economically challenged. And that's kind of a double whammy when you're trying to learn a language and dealing with some of the challenges of poverty. And we're seeing more and more of that. As far as our own pre-K program, we have been currently doing a lot of looking at our pre-K program. We did not have a unified curriculum, and we have adopted a unified pre-K curriculum. I'm not sure if we did an evaluation of pre-K right now, past pre-K. I don't know that it would be indicative of what our future pre-K would look like with a more extensive and school readiness, literacy readiness curriculum. So those would be my comments. I have had, as a principal, both half-day and full-day programs in a Title I school. And when students go home as second language learners in a home of poverty, they are definitely not going to be speaking English. And I think that you just get a lot more embedded vocabulary building, enriching experiences, and that whole pre-literacy framework with a full-day program.
All right, thank you, Dr. Hill. Anybody else have any comments? All right, well, I think I pretty much agree with what most everyone has said, that the reduction in the number of TEKs, reduction in the number of assessments, all of that whole section seems definitely good. The school finance section, the governance section, definitely in favor of local control. I heard some disagreement a little bit about the pre-K, but I think maybe we just need to know more about that and know its impact in our school district, and maybe understand better its cost and sort of some of the details around it. I read the House Bill 5 implementation on this list as let us implement the new law before adding more things to it. That's kind of how I read that. So I think that that's smart, because we'll never know if we're doing a good job at it, if we're going after a moving target. That being said, there may be some modifications that need to be made to help children with special needs, or help English language learners, or some other groups. I don't know. But I certainly wouldn't be an advocate for more things to do. Since we already seem to have our plate pretty full. And then on the graduation review committee, I guess I sort of looked at it maybe like Mrs. Toussaint did, but I can see your point too, Mrs. Bailey. We don't want to make just our diplomas meaningless, but we also need to be understanding of children who are coming from different places. So I suppose that's what that's about, and maybe we can think about that or explore that or research it, as you said, Mr. Burdine. So I guess those are my comments. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to add? Mr. Rice is inhaling. Go ahead. We're going to let it go. Okay, so do we want to sort of consolidate this down to the list of the things we sort of all agreed on, or do we feel comfortable about that, something that we'd bring to our next meeting? Do we want to just leave it where it is and know we've had this conversation and be comfortable with that? What would be the board's pleasure?
Well, I would think, last year or 2 years ago we did this and we kind of took a vote, and I think this is a better way to do it, where we're kind of saying, okay, what do we want on that list? So I would put the things where we pretty much all agree on the list, and then we could all approve it and say this is what we support. I think that's what folks are looking for.
Yeah, right? I think that's helpful, and I know that I've been asked by different state representatives, by different state senators' office, what's our opinion, and at this point I've come to them with a lot of facts about Fort Bend ISD, but I think it would be nice to be able to say these are things that are important issues and that we have some awareness of in our school district. So, okay, so so we can get something together or consolidate this list down to the things that I listed off there: the TEKs, the accountability and assessment section, basically the school finance section, the governance, and achievement school districts and home rule districts. Those are the things I've heard we all agreed on. Mr. George, you're very quiet down there. Are you comfortable with that? Okay. All right. Okay, so I think, could someone help us to consolidate that down to that list?
Yes, ma'am. We'll work with the list you were provided for your talking points and kind of consolidate that into a document that could be presented as their Fort Bend ISD priorities. And we'll have that on the next agenda in March.
And that would be great. And I liked how you had the Fort Bend ISD story included there. What's the situation in Fort Bend ISD? So that helps us to be able to explain it to our state legislators when we see them or meet with them. So thank you very much. All right. Our next item is, it's closed session. So the time is 6:50, and the board will meet in closed session for the purpose of a private consultation with the board's attorney on any or all subject matters as authorized by law, and for personnel matters. The board's now in session.